I was scheduled to finish my double shift at 5 p.m., but my captain, Dan Kiesner, told me to leave early since there wasn't anything urgent happening. As a lieutenant with the Minneapolis police force named John Taylor, I currently serve as the liaison officer with the Northern Plains Safe Trails Drug Enforcement Task Force, essentially an arm of the DEA. I gladly accepted Dan's offer and left work by 3:30 p.m., heading home to Maple Grove on the northwest side of the metro area, about a half-hour drive away. After a grueling double shift, I was relieved to have some extra time to unwind. All I wanted was to grab a beer, relax until dinner, spend time with my wife, Kathy, and catch up on some much-needed sleep. Upon arriving home, I noticed Kathy and her twin sister, Sharon, sitting by the pool, engaged in conversation. They were both topless, a sight that never failed to captivate me. This was a familiar scene, as they often sunbathed topless, even in my presence. I had dated Sharon before meeting Kathy, and while she was undeniably attractive, it was Kathy who had captured my heart with her unique charm. Sharon had introduced me to Kathy, and there was an instant connection between us. It was love at first sight, and Sharon graciously stepped aside, wishing us well before leaving us alone. We got married a few months later and had been happily married for 5 years, contemplating starting a family. Returning to the present, I smiled at the sight of Kathy and Sharon by the pool, thinking it was a perfect way to unwind. I went upstairs to change into my swim trunks, anticipating joining them for some relaxation and enjoyment of the sunny afternoon. As I descended the stairs in my swimsuit, I noticed Kathy and Sharon entering the kitchen, engaged in a heated discussion. Sharon's raised voice caught my attention as she expressed concern about Kathy's actions, urging her not to betray my trust by cheating on me. Kathy replied, "John will never find out, and you better not tell him either." "I just need to do this, Sharon. We've been talking about starting a family, and after that, I'll be a mother. I could never do this again. I just want to experience it once." When Phil was dancing with me on Saturday night, he held me so close, and I could feel his entire presence against me. I was incredibly turned on. He was whispering dirty things to me the whole time, telling me what he wanted to do if he ever had the chance, and I was ready to go for it right there on the dance floor. When we got home, I practically ripped John's clothes off and fucked him hard. Then yesterday, Phil called me and said he knew John would be away for a seminar on Friday night and wanted to take me to dinner to show me what he meant by how he'd treat me. I couldn't resist. I said yes. Sharon sounded saddened. "Kathy, it would be a terrible mistake to let Phil Swanson near you. He's not a good guy, and you mean nothing to him. John adores you, Kathy, and you'll break his heart. He's an amazing man, the best in the world. He's handsome, fun, and an incredible lover, you know that. How could you want anything else?" Kathy replied, "I know John is amazing. I love him dearly, and I wouldn't want to hurt him, but he won't find out, and this will be a one-time thing. It'll be over, and we'll start our family. I'll never have to wonder again because I'll have experienced it. And even if he did find out, and he won't, but if he did, he loves me so much, I'm sure I could convince him to forgive me." "You're gambling your future on that assumption, Kathy," Sharon added. "I think you're foolish to think this way. You might get away with it, you might deceive John, you might never get caught, but you'll always know you cheated, and it will change you. Who knows what will happen to your relationship? If you go through with this, you'll lose. And Kathy, you know I love you, but if you do this, you'll lose my respect too. Let's drop it. I'm not discussing this anymore. Let's go back out to the pool, finish our drinks, and then I'm heading home. Please think long and hard about your decision." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sharon's support meant a lot to me, but I was devastated by what Kathy was planning. It seemed Phil Swanson, a social friend, was as attracted to Kathy as I was, but he wasn't her husband, I was, and he would bear the consequences. Feeling furious and unable to face them, I quietly slipped back upstairs to put on the clothes I had previously taken off. I left the house and drove away in my car, needing to distance myself from the situation. Once I was far enough, I called our home number, knowing I'd reach voicemail, and left Kathy a message. "Kathy, I got off work early and decided to stop at the cavern for a few beers with the guys. It's been a long day, and I might be a bit late for dinner. Love you." I ended up getting heavily drunk at the cavern, and by 10 p.m., the bartender called a cab for me. I woke up the next morning around 9 a.m., disoriented and regretful. Kathy had left me a note, expressing her anger at my drunken behavior and how it had ruined our planned evening before I left for the seminar. Little did she know, I intentionally got drunk because of her, and I no longer desired intimacy with her, not then and maybe not ever again. I called my captain, explaining the situation and requesting to skip the seminar. Then I took care of practical matters, transferring funds and changing beneficiaries on my accounts. At 5:30 p.m., Kathy called, but I chose not to answer. Her voicemail message expressed her frustration and declared that she wouldn't take my call either. I couldn't help but feel emotional as I pondered her reaction. She was planning to cheat on me with Phil, yet she was upset because I got drunk. I could only wait to see how things would unfold after tonight. At around 6:30 p.m., Kathy and Phil were seated at a table in Vito's Italian restaurant in Pine Springs, an eastern suburb of St. Paul. Located about 40 minutes east of Maple Grove, the restaurant was chosen for its privacy. They were savoring a glass of wine before dinner, anticipating a delightful meal and the intimate encounter they had planned for later. Approaching their table, a large man in a dark blue pinstripe suit greeted them with a small smile and inquired, "Are you Kathy Taylor?" Confirming her identity, Kathy received a manila folder from him, along with an envelope addressed to her. Handing the envelope to Phil, the man continued, "Philip Swanson?" Phil nodded, and the man proceeded, "This contains a copy of a letter delivered to your wife Sarah this afternoon. It was also sent to every couple in your neighborhood in Maple Grove and to your parents in Oakdale. Have a wonderful evening." With that, he walked away. Examining the letter, Phil discovered it detailed the allegations against him regarding his advances toward Kathy and their plans for the evening. Kathy, meanwhile, opened the manila envelope to find a familiar document, a fully executed legal separation order. Overwhelmed with shock and distress, she couldn't contain her tears, softly repeating, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." Realizing the gravity of the situation, Phil suggested taking Kathy home, but she refused, adamant that their association had to end immediately. Phil understood and silently left, settling the bill on the table. Feeling the need to be alone, Kathy asked the hostess to call her a cab. As soon as it arrived, she departed for home, her heart heavy with anticipation and dread as she prepared to read John's letter. "Dear Kathy, by now, you're aware that I've learned about your intentions to cheat on me with Phil Swanson. You may be wondering how I found out, and I want to clarify that it wasn't through Sharon. She had no involvement in this, and she remains a supportive sister and friend to both of us, despite your disregard for her advice. Yesterday, I returned home early from work and saw both of you by the pool. Naturally, I was eager to join you and admire your beauty, so I went upstairs to change. However, I overheard your conversation as you entered the kitchen, and I heard everything. I heard about your attraction to Phil, your desire to be with him, and your willingness to betray our marriage for a fleeting moment of pleasure before becoming an old mom. I heard you speak of your love for me and your belief that I would forgive you no matter what. I also heard Sharon's efforts to make you see the consequences of your actions, but you were determined to proceed. Kathy, I've loved you since the moment I met you, and that love may always remain. However, I cannot ignore injustice. My commitment to justice guided my decision to become an officer, and it continues to shape my life. You may recall our discussion about the legal separation papers you're holding. When we got engaged, your parents' divorce made you cautious about marriage. We agreed to draw up these papers, along with divorce papers, as a way to facilitate a clean break if either of us ever wanted out of the marriage. These separation papers are now in your possession and will be filed with the family court on Monday. Our separation period is for up to 6 months, after which, if we haven't reconciled, the divorce papers will be filed automatically. All necessary documentation is with my attorney, and the process will proceed unless I instruct otherwise. Kathy, I want you to take some time to reflect on your actions in the coming months because I won't be around. I've requested a permanent assignment to the task force, and I've already gone undercover to dismantle a major drug operation in the city. It'll take time, and I'll be out of touch except through my handler, Carolyn Hofstetter. You can reach out to her, but she won't relay any messages for safety reasons. I'm not sure what else to say right now, and I'm not ready to hear your response. Regardless of what happens, we'll talk at least once. I genuinely hope you find happiness in the future, even if it means it wasn't with me. Goodbye, and know that I still love you, John. Kathy sat with tears flowing, realizing her grave mistake. She loved John deeply, yet her actions had driven him away. Though she hadn't slept with Phil, she knew she'd betrayed her husband, and he was aware of it. Feeling desperate, she called her sister Sharon. Sharon, John found out about Phil and served me with our separation papers. He's gone undercover with the DEA, and I can't reach him. What should I do? Damn it, Kathy. You had the best man, and you let him slip away over a fantasy with Phil. John loved you more than anything, and now he's gone. I regret giving him to you. Cry yourself to sleep, and we'll talk later. Thank you, Sharon. Good night. A month later, I called Sharon. Hi, it's John. John, it's good to hear from you. We've been worried. Carolyn said you've gone off the grid. Well, Sharon, he began, firstly, I'm doing fine. I assumed Kathy would be preoccupied with her fantasies about Phil, so she wouldn't think much about me. Secondly, I've made significant progress in my work, and I felt going off the grid would make me more effective, even though I know it's against the rules. I'm sure I'll face consequences when I resurface, but for now, my results speak for themselves. Now, onto why I called you. When I learned about Kathy's plans, I was deeply hurt and then angry. As you know, we had those agreements signed due to the fallout from your parents' divorce. It was mainly Kathy's idea, but in hindsight, it was a wise decision. It gives her the freedom to do as she pleases and minimizes conflicts. I have a few questions and requests before I go off again. Is she still involved with Phil or seeing someone else? Did she sleep with him? John, she didn't sleep with Phil that night or anyone else since then. After you served her, she didn't even let Phil take her home. She called a cab. I've been keeping an eye on her, and she's been faithful, waiting for you to return. She's devastated by her actions and heartbroken that you've left. Your wife is suffering greatly from her foolishness. I'm sure she'll be relieved when you call. When are you planning to come back? I won't be calling her, Sharon. I want her to suffer the consequences of her actions and understand the value of our relationship. As much as I miss her and you, she needs to realize what life would be like without me. I'll be away for a while longer. This project might take a couple more months, and it's safer for both of us if I stay separated. I'll update you in a month, but I won't be calling her. If you agree, don't mention that I called. I want her to be certain about what she wants. Lastly, thank you for being an amazing sister-in-law. I heard what you said that day in the kitchen, and I wish Kathy had listened to you. Your support means a lot to me, even if she didn't follow your advice. Sharon, I have to go now. I'll talk to you in a month. Goodbye. Sharon wanted to say more but managed only, goodbye, John. She truly loves you. As she heard him hang up, she whispered, and I love you too, John. A month passed, and Sharon anticipated another call from John, but it never came. After 2 months of silence, she grew increasingly worried and decided to contact Carolyn Hofstetter once more to inquire about John's well-being. Carolyn, this is Sharon Burke, John Taylor's sister-in-law. I'm concerned about John. He called me a month after going undercover and promised to call again in a month, but it's been 2 months, and I haven't heard from him. Can you provide any information? Sharon, you're listed as the contact for John Taylor, but there's not much I can share. John is deep undercover and off our grid. I don't know his whereabouts or activities, and I can't confirm if he's okay or not. However, we've been receiving numerous anonymous tips on drug-related activities, leading to several arrests and the recruitment of confidential informants. It's making a significant impact on drug trafficking in the area. While I suspect John's involvement, I can't confirm it. I'll inform you if I receive any concrete information about John. Until then, we can only wait unless he's spotted somewhere, Carolyn explained. Feeling anxious, Sharon decided to share this information with Kathy, despite John's previous request. She couldn't bear to see her sister suffer any more than she already was. Almost another month passed, and Sharon received a call from Carolyn Hofstetter one morning. Sharon Burke? Yes, speaking. I have information about John Taylor, but I can't discuss it over the phone. I suggest we pick you and John's wife up and discuss it in my office. This sounds serious, and I'm really worried. Can't you give me any details now? Sharon asked. I can't discuss it over the phone, but I'm available this afternoon. Let's schedule a meeting at 1:30 p.m. I'll send Agents Pierce and Jackson to pick you up. Ask for their IDs. And remember, discuss this with no one but John's wife, Carolyn instructed. Sharon was terrified but agreed to the meeting. We'll be ready at 1:30 p.m. for Agents Pierce and Jackson, she assured. The anticipated knock on the door startled the two women, who had been anxiously awaiting 1:30 p.m. As Carolyn had informed them, Agents Pierce and Jackson escorted them to the waiting black SUV. Despite the escort, Kathy and Sharon couldn't shake their unease, wondering about the secrecy surrounding the situation. Upon arriving at Carolyn Hofstetter's office, they were greeted warmly. I'm glad to finally meet you both, Carolyn said with a slight laugh. Which one of you is Kathy, and which is Sharon? Kathy stepped forward and introduced herself as John's wife, with Sharon as her identical twin sister. Carolyn then offered refreshments, but both women declined, their synchronized response drawing a smile from everyone. With a deep breath, Carolyn began, I have some difficult news to share, but there's also some encouraging updates. The sisters, visibly distressed, braced themselves for the worst. Please, let me explain, Carolyn continued. John has been shot. He sustained 3 gunshot wounds, and he's currently in critical condition. The sisters reacted with shock and tears, prompting Carolyn to raise her voice. Please, let me finish, she implored. Once the women calmed down, Carolyn proceeded to explain John's condition. Despite the seriousness of his injuries, the doctors expect him to fully recover. While there are concerns about infection, he's being closely monitored, and any changes will be addressed promptly. She continued, John is currently in a coma, which the doctors view as a positive aspect of his treatment. Comas can aid in the healing process by reducing stress and pain. Although it's unsettling for family members, it's considered beneficial for his recovery. Though relieved to hear John was expected to recover, Kathy and Sharon were still reeling from the news. They listened intently as Carolyn provided further details and reassurances about John's condition. Kathy's questions poured out anxiously. Where is he? Can I go see him? When did this happen? Carolyn's voice held a mix of relief and urgency as she replied, John was shot 3 days ago. It's a miracle he's alive. The hit was ordered by the drug leaders, and they believed it was successful. He sustained 2 gunshot wounds to the chest and 1 to the head. We're not sure why the bullets weren't fatal, but he's lucky to be alive. She paused, then continued, her tone serious. I'm aware of your marital situation, Kathy. John specifically asked that you not be informed about his undercover work. However, given his expected recovery and the circumstances, I decided it was best to bring you into the loop. Kathy's mind raced, recalling the past when John had contacted her sister without her knowledge. I understand, she murmured, her heart heavy with the weight of the situation. Addressing Kathy's concerns, Carolyn explained, John is in a secure medical facility, receiving top-notch care. You can be with him, but there are strict rules to follow. She outlined the gravity of John's situation. He's provided crucial information to dismantle the drug distribution system. He's now in witness protection, and if you choose to be with him, you must enter the program too. Otherwise, you'll need to go off the grid for your safety and his. It's a permanent risk. They'll never stop targeting him. Kathy's resolve hardened. I'll do anything to be with him. I love him and will stand by him, no matter what. Sharon, silent until now, expressed her love and pain softly. I love him too, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Carolyn and Kathy turned to face Sharon, surprised by her sudden plea. I couldn't bear to be away from John, and I can't bear the thought of being away from Kathy either. Can I go too? I'll do everything Kathy has to do. I've always loved John, and Kathy, you know I love you. Please, let me do this. Carolyn, sensing Sharon's sincerity, agreed to the request on the condition that Kathy also agreed. Knowing Sharon's long-standing feelings for John and their mutual love, Kathy couldn't deny her. Yes, it would be good for all of us. I know how much John loved me, and he loved you too, sis. You love both of us. Take us to see him. However, Carolyn tempered their excitement with a dose of reality. You'll be escorted home to gather your belongings and then return here to sever ties for an extended period. You'll spend the night here, and tomorrow, you'll complete everything before seeing John. The sisters were impatient, demanding to see John immediately. But Carolyn insisted on following the protocol for safety. Later that night, in their guarded room at the safe house, the sisters wept together, realizing the sacrifices they would have to make. Despite the challenges, they were determined to be with John. Kathy expressed her remorse to Sharon, acknowledging her mistakes. I'm so sorry about all of this. If only I had listened to you, none of this would have happened. If only I had been content with John's love and not pursued Phil. John wouldn't have left, gone undercover, or been shot. You wouldn't have had to give up everything to be with us, and I wouldn't feel like I'm to blame for John's situation. Why didn't I listen to you? You're absolutely right, Kathy. You shouldn't have gone down that path, but you did. You showed enough sense to stop before things went further with Phil, but cheating is cheating, and you'll have to live with that. Luckily, I believe you and John can move past this mistake, and I'm praying that you do. I want everything to be as wonderful as it was before your lapse in judgment. With that, Sharon hugged Kathy tightly. I love you, sis. You're a part of me, and I'm a part of you. While Sharon quickly fell asleep, Kathy spent the night in deep thought and tears. She finally drifted off in the early hours of the morning, only to be awakened by a knock on their door. Breakfast will be ready in an hour. We need to get moving, Agent Pierce announced. By 11 a.m., they were ready, having showered, dressed, and packed. After a light breakfast, they made final calls and arrangements before heading to see John. The SUV arrived at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, with tinted windows and a partition blocking their view. At 12:30 p.m., they were escorted into the hospital and taken to a guarded waiting room. Despite understanding the need for security, they found it unsettling. Eventually, a U.S. Marshal representative briefed Kathy and Sharon, explaining that they wouldn't officially enter witness protection until John fully recovered and decided if he wanted them with him. In the hospital room, John lay on the bed, his eyes closed, bandages covering his head, and tubes attached. Despite his appearance, he had narrowly escaped death. Tears streamed down the sisters' faces as they looked at John. Dr. Mark Gordon, the attending physician, requested a conference with them to provide instructions for being around John. He's in a coma, but his subconscious mind may still be active. We need you to be soothing and gentle in your actions and words around him. Stress could disrupt his healing process, whether he's aware of it or not. Do you understand? Kathy and Sharon replied in unison, yes, we understand perfectly. The doctor smiled, finding it amusing how the twins always responded together without realizing it. He also couldn't help but admire their beauty, thinking John was lucky to have such caring and beautiful women by his side. Now, spend some time with John, but remember to keep it low-key, the doctor advised. Thank you, Doctor. We'll do whatever it takes to help him recover, they chimed in again. Led back into the room, the twins sat beside John's bed. Kathy reached out and held his hand, tears in her eyes as she spoke to him for the first time in 4 months. John, it's Kathy. I'm here with you now and will do everything I can to help you recover. Just relax and don't worry. I'm here for you, now and forever. Sharon is here too. We both want you to get better. I love you, John. Sharon placed her hand on John's leg and said, John, it's Sharon. We're both here for you now. Just focus on getting better. One or both of us will always be by your side. We want to see you smile again soon. Days passed, and as promised, Kathy and Sharon never left John's side. They held his hand, talked to him, read to him, and played music for him. They showed unwavering dedication and love, drawing admiration from doctors and nurses alike. 3 months had passed since John was shot, and his physical healing was complete. Tests showed no physical issues, but it was unclear when he would wake from the coma. Then one morning, while Kathy was with him, John opened his eyes. "Doctor, nurse, John is awake," Kathy exclaimed. The hospital staff immediately sprung into action, attending to John with a flurry of activity. Doctors examined him thoroughly, conducting various tests and assessments. John struggled to communicate at first, only managing to squeak out yes and no responses. By the time the doctors had finished their examination and Sharon arrived, John had regained some ability to respond. Sharon, overwhelmed with emotion, held John's hand and expressed her joy at his awakening, tears streaming down her face. Meanwhile, Kathy had remained mostly silent, apprehensive about John's reaction to her. John glanced at her with a puzzled expression, prompting Kathy to wonder why she hadn't expressed the same sentiments as Sharon. The medical team concluded that John had suffered significant memory loss, particularly regarding the past year. He had no recollection of his undercover work or the drug operations he had been involved in. To avoid causing further trauma, the staff refrained from discussing his personal life. Kathy and Sharon pondered whether to inform John about the events surrounding their marriage. The doctors advised them to wait and see if John's memories would return naturally over the next few days. After a couple of days, Kathy sat by John's side and mustered the courage to speak. Tearfully, she confessed to John about the difficult time they had faced in their marriage. "John, there's something I need to tell you. I love you so much, and I'm relieved to see you awake and recovering. But I'm also deeply sorry about what happened during your coma. I'll do everything I can to help you remember the good times, but I need to tell you about the challenges we faced." Unable to continue, Kathy broke down in tears. John comforted her and encouraged her to share whatever was troubling her. Kathy gathered herself and spoke, admitting her plan to cheat on John with Phil Swanson. She acknowledged receiving the separation papers from John and his subsequent departure for undercover work. It was the first time they had spoken since then. She expressed deep remorse for her actions, emphasizing that while she had planned to cheat, she never followed through and remained faithful during his absence. Kathy tearfully apologized, wishing she could undo her mistake but acknowledging its irreversible consequences. John questioned her motive for revealing the truth, suggesting she could have kept it hidden. Kathy explained that she wanted their marriage to be built on honesty, even if it meant facing the consequences of her actions. She hoped for forgiveness and a chance to rebuild their relationship based on truth. Though hurt by Kathy's confession, John requested time to process her words before discussing it further. He asked to be left alone for a couple of days to reflect. 3 days later, John called a meeting with Kathy, Sharon, his Dr. Mark, and Nurse Carol. During this time, he received a letter from his attorney confirming his divorce from Kathy. In the meeting, John expressed gratitude for their support during his recovery and announced that he had regained his lost memories. He believed he now had a full recollection of the past year and invited verification from the medical team. "Now, I want to address my personal situation," John began. Dr. Gordon and Carol prepared to leave, but John asked them to stay for a moment. He continued, "Kathy, I've received notification that our separation and divorce papers have been filed with the court systems as per my request, and we are officially divorced." Both Kathy and Sharon gasped in disbelief. "Oh God, John, no!" Kathy exclaimed. "Why didn't you give me a chance to make things right and work it out?" "Kathy, it was automatic once I requested the official separation. It was part of our agreement," John explained. "I've decided to let the divorce stand, and I want to explain why. I loved Sharon before, and when I met you, I fell in love with you deeply. But after what happened, I can't say I love you more than Sharon anymore. Your actions hurt me deeply." "I promise, John, I'll never hurt you like that again," Kathy pleaded. "However, I have reason to doubt that," John said, turning to Dr. Gordon and Carol. "During my coma, I overheard a conversation in my subconscious. It was about you, Kathy." He recounted the conversation he had heard, causing Kathy to gasp loudly. Dr. Gordon and Carol confirmed the conversation, looking embarrassed. John turned to Kathy, tears streaming down her face. Sharon, furious, confronted her sister. How could you do that? What's wrong with you? John felt a profound sadness as his suspicions were confirmed, but he composed himself. Turning to Mark and Carol, he said, "You two can leave. I just needed confirmation of what I thought I heard. It seems a person in a coma does indeed have a connection to their surroundings." Dr. Gordon and Carol exited the room. Addressing Sharon, John revealed his plan to enter witness protection after testifying in court against those indicted because of his provided information. "I've always loved you, and your unwavering loyalty proves your love for me. While I'm not proposing marriage, I'd like you to come with me. Will you?" Sharon expressed her love for John, but explained she couldn't abandon her sister forever. Understanding her decision, John suggested inviting Kathy to join them. "I still love Kathy, despite my hurt and disappointment. However, I won't remarry her and don't trust her. Will you come if Kathy agrees?" "Yes, I will," Sharon agreed. Turning to Kathy, John acknowledged her shock but held her accountable. "I love you, but I don't trust you. I won't remarry you, and if you're unfaithful again, I'll leave. However, I propose living together, sharing love equally, and having children together. But remember, any infidelity from you and I'll walk away with our children. Do you agree to enter witness protection under these terms?" At this point, Kathy was in tears but managed to respond, "Yes, John, I want to be with you. Despite my mistakes, I truly love you, and my life wouldn't be complete without you. I promise I'll never make the same foolish choices again." "Agreed," John said, addressing both Kathy and Sharon. "From now on, I'll love you both equally. Let's build a life together that brings happiness to all of us." With that, John embraced the twins, kissing each of them. Kathy's tears had dried, and both women smiled at John, their smiles warming his heart as they always had. Somehow, he felt confident that everything would work out. Epilogue: John testified in the drug dealers' cases, leading to their convictions. His accurate information was crucial for the prosecution, marking a significant success in crime prosecution. For their safety, John and the sisters were relocated, their identities concealed effectively. Now a successful businessman, John enjoys the company of two devoted women in his life. There's no jealousy between the sisters, and John never struggles with sleep. For years later, John and Kathy have two daughters, while John and Sharon have a son and another daughter on the way. Every night, John goes to bed with a smile on his face. Kathy reflects on her past mistakes, grateful to still have John and Sharon in her life, vowing never to repeat those errors. Sharon feels fortunate to fully share her life with John, whom she's always loved. Every night, the narrator wishes they were in John's shoes. Write your opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a great day.